March 15, 1945. Camp Ellis, Illinois. The barbed wire gleamed under the pale morning sun as Greta Miller stood in line with 37 other German women, their worn uniforms bearing the stark letters PW that marked them as prisoners of war on American soil. The silence was deafening, broken only by the distant sound of boots on gravel and the occasional cough from women who had spent months in overcrowded transport ships, enduring conditions that had left many of them weak, malnourished, and sick. Miller clutched a thin blanket around her shoulders, trying to hide the trembling that had nothing to do with the Illinois cold. For months, she had heard whispers among the prisoners about what awaited them in American hands. The propaganda she had grown up with painted Americans as brutal captors who showed no mercy to their enemies. She expected beatings, starvation, humiliation, designed to break their spirits and extract information about the collapsing Reich. The American guard who approached their line spoke in broken German, his voice surprisingly calm, as he announced that all prisoners would undergo medical examinations. Miller's heart raced. This was it, the moment she had dreaded since her capture near the Rhine. She had heard stories from other fronts about medical examinations that were nothing more than excuses for torture and degradation. Her hands instinctively moved to protect herself as she prepared for the worst. The infirmary door opened to reveal something entirely unexpected. Instead of the harsh, sterile brutality she had imagined, Miller saw clean white walls, organized medical equipment, and American medical staff wearing spotless uniforms and professional expressions that showed no trace of the cruelty she had been conditioned to expect. The smell of disinfectant filled the air, not the acrid scent of violence, but the clean, antiseptic aroma of a functioning hospital. What would you have thought? Expecting brutality, but finding yourself treated with the same respect as any patient in peacetime. The capture of German women during the final months of World War II presented American military authorities with unprecedented challenges regarding prisoner treatment, medical care, and adherence to international law under circumstances that tested every assumption about warfare and human dignity. By early 1945, advancing American forces were encountering increasing numbers of female prisoners, including military auxiliaries, medical personnel, and civilian women caught in combat zones who required immediate medical attention and long-term care. The Geneva Convention of 1929 had established clear guidelines for prisoner treatment, but the realities of treating female prisoners in a male-dominated military system created complexities that American medical and administrative personnel had to navigate carefully. The convention required that prisoners receive medical care equivalent to that provided to the captor nation's own forces, but American military leadership recognized that exceeding these minimum requirements would demonstrate moral superiority while potentially yielding strategic intelligence and propaganda advantages. American military medical doctrine emphasized professionalism, scientific rigor, and ethical standards that had been developed through decades of peacetime training and wartime experience across multiple theaters. Medical officers serving in prisoner-of-war facilities were typically experienced physicians who had volunteered for military service and maintained civilian medical licenses that required adherence to professional standards, regardless of the circumstances under which they practiced medicine. The infrastructure supporting medical care in American POW camps reflected the nation's industrial capacity and organizational efficiency, enabling the establishment of fully equipped medical facilities that rivaled many civilian hospitals in terms of equipment, staffing, and procedural standards. These facilities were designed to handle everything from routine examinations to complex surgical procedures, while maintaining the security protocols necessary for prisoner containment. German women entering American captivity carried psychological baggage created by years of Nazi propaganda that portrayed Americans as culturally inferior, morally corrupt, and incapable of the discipline necessary for civilized behavior toward prisoners or civilians. This conditioning had prepared them to expect treatment that reflected the brutal standards that German forces had often applied to captured enemies, creating expectations of degradation and abuse that American medical personnel would systematically contradict. The medical conditions of German female prisoners reflected the deteriorating situation within Germany during the war's final phases, when food shortages, medical supply limitations, and the breakdown of civilian infrastructure had created widespread malnutrition, infectious diseases, and psychological trauma among both military and civilian populations. Many women arrived at American facilities suffering from conditions that required immediate medical intervention to prevent serious complications or death. American military medical personnel had been trained to treat all patients according to established medical standards, regardless of nationality, military status, or political affiliation, reflecting professional ethics that prioritized medical need over political considerations. This training emphasized that medical treatment represented an opportunity to demonstrate American values, while gathering intelligence about enemy conditions and capabilities. The strategic implications of exemplary medical care extended beyond immediate humanitarian concerns to broader questions about American international reputation, post-war reconstruction planning, and the psychological warfare value of demonstrating superior civilization through treatment of enemy prisoners. American leadership recognized that stories of respectful treatment would reach Germany through prisoner correspondence and repatriation, potentially influencing German civilian and military morale. The logistics of providing medical care to female prisoners required specialized personnel, equipment, and procedures that challenged American military organization and resources, but the commitment to maintaining high standards reflected national values and strategic objectives that prioritized long-term diplomatic and moral advantages over short-term administrative convenience or cost savings. Female prisoners represented a unique category that required consideration of gender-specific medical needs, cultural sensitivities, and security challenges that male prisoners did not present. American medical personnel developed protocols that balanced medical necessity with respect for privacy and dignity, while maintaining the security requirements essential for prisoner containment and camp safety. The contrast between American treatment of prisoners and documented German treatment of Allied prisoners created propaganda opportunities that American psychological warfare specialists recognized and exploited through various media channels. Stories of respectful medical care provided concrete evidence of American moral superiority that contradicted German propaganda about American character and values. The documentation of medical care provided to German prisoners served multiple purposes, including legal compliance with international agreements, medical research into wartime health conditions, and historical record-keeping that would support post-war accountability and reconstruction efforts. These records would later provide evidence of American adherence to civilized standards during a conflict characterized by unprecedented brutality in other theaters. March 15, 1945, 09:30 hours. Medical Facility, Camp Ellis. Greta Müller entered the examination room with the hesitant steps of a woman walking toward her execution, her eyes darting nervously between the medical equipment that lined the walls and the American medical personnel who waited with professional calm that seemed impossible under the circumstances. The room was spotlessly clean, with white walls that reflected the morning light streaming through windows that had been fitted with security screens but remained unbarred, creating an atmosphere more reminiscent of a civilian hospital than a military prison. Doctor Margaret Thompson, a lieutenant colonel in the Army Medical Corps who had volunteered for POW duty after completing her residency at Johns Hopkins, approached Muller with the same professional demeanor she had maintained throughout 15 years of medical practice. Doctor Thompson's presence alone challenged every assumption Muller had developed about American military personnel. Here was a woman in uniform, clearly holding authority over male subordinates, demonstrating capabilities that German propaganda had insisted were impossible in American society. The examination began with Dr. Thompson explaining each procedure in careful German that she had learned specifically for treating German prisoners, her voice calm and reassuring as she described routine medical assessments that would evaluate Muller's general health, nutritional status, and any medical conditions requiring treatment. The explanation itself was revolutionary. In Muller's experience, medical procedures were performed on prisoners without explanation or consent, but here was an American doctor seeking understanding and cooperation rather than demanding submission. Nurse Lieutenant Sarah Martinez assisted Dr. Thompson, while maintaining a professional distance that respected Muller's privacy and dignity, providing clean hospital gowns and ensuring that examination procedures followed the same protocols used for American military personnel. The attention to proper medical procedure and patient comfort contradicted everything Muller had been taught about American medical standards and moral character. The physical examination revealed the full extent of malnutrition and medical neglect that Muller had endured during the war's final months, with Dr. Thompson documenting weight loss, vitamin deficiencies, and signs of chronic stress that reflected the deteriorating conditions within Germany during the period leading to her capture. Each finding was recorded with scientific precision, while Dr. Thompson explained her observations and recommended treatments in terms that demonstrated genuine concern for Muller's health and recovery. Dr. Thompson's examination technique reflected medical school training that emphasized patient dignity and professional ethics regardless of circumstances, with careful attention to privacy, consent, and comfort that amazed Muller, who had expected to be treated as an object rather than a patient deserving of medical care. The contrast with her expectations was so profound that she initially suspected deception or psychological manipulation designed to extract information. The medical equipment used during Muller's examination represented the latest advances in diagnostic technology, including X-ray machines, laboratory testing capabilities, and pharmaceutical supplies that exceeded anything available in Germany during the war's final phases. The abundance and quality of medical resources demonstrated American industrial capacity while providing concrete evidence of the technological superiority that had enabled American military victory. Laboratory tests ordered by Dr. Thompson revealed deficiency diseases and infections that required immediate treatment with medications that were unavailable in wartime Germany but abundant in American medical facilities. The prescription of expensive antibiotics and vitamins for an enemy prisoner demonstrated American resource capabilities while reflecting medical ethics that prioritized patient welfare over political considerations. The psychological impact on Muller was immediate and profound, challenging fundamental assumptions about American character and capabilities that had shaped her worldview throughout the war. The respectful treatment she received forced reconsideration of everything she had been taught about her captors, creating cognitive dissonance that would influence her understanding of American society and values for the remainder of her life. Other German women undergoing simultaneous examinations experienced similar shock at the professional and respectful treatment they received from American medical personnel, who demonstrated capabilities and ethical standards that exceeded anything they had experienced in German medical facilities during wartime conditions. The consistency of respectful treatment across multiple patients indicated systematic policies rather than individual kindness. Dr. Thompson's documentation of Müller's case included detailed notes about nutritional deficiencies and medical conditions that would inform treatment protocols for other German prisoners while contributing to medical research about wartime health impacts. The scientific approach to prisoner medical care reflected American commitment to advancing medical knowledge even under challenging circumstances. The treatment recommendations provided to Müller included dietary modifications, medication schedules, and follow-up procedures that demonstrated long-term commitment to her health and recovery rather than minimal care designed to meet legal requirements. The comprehensive approach to medical treatment reflected American values and resources while providing propaganda advantages through demonstrated moral superiority. American medical personnel throughout the facility maintained professional standards that reflected extensive training and cultural values, emphasizing individual dignity and medical ethics. The systematic application of these standards to enemy prisoners demonstrated institutional commitment to civilized behavior that contradicted German propaganda about American moral character and capabilities. The medical records maintained for each German prisoner reflected American attention to documentation, scientific methodology, and legal compliance that would provide evidence of proper treatment while contributing to medical understanding of wartime health conditions. These records would later serve as historical documentation of American adherence to civilized standards during a brutal conflict. The immediate medical interventions provided to Müller and other German prisoners included treatments that would have been considered luxury care in wartime Germany, demonstrating American resource abundance while reflecting medical ethics that prioritized patient welfare regardless of nationality or political affiliation. The quality of care exceeded minimum legal requirements while providing strategic advantages through demonstrated superiority. Within days of receiving medical care that exceeded her wildest expectations, Greta Müller found herself questioning fundamental beliefs about American society and character that had been shaped by years of Nazi propaganda and wartime indoctrination. The respectful treatment she received from Dr. Thompson and the medical staff created cognitive dissonance that forced painful reconsideration of everything she had been taught about her enemies and their moral character. The physical improvements in Müller's health were rapid and dramatic, reflecting the quality of American medical care and the abundance of resources dedicated to prisoner welfare. Proper nutrition, medication, and medical attention restored her strength while providing tangible evidence of American capabilities and commitment to civilized treatment of prisoners. The contrast with her declining health during the war's final months in Germany was stark and undeniable. Word of respectful medical treatment spread quickly through the prisoner population, creating psychological effects that American intelligence personnel recognized and documented for their strategic value. German prisoners, who had expected brutality instead, found themselves receiving medical care that exceeded what many had experienced as civilians in wartime Germany, forcing reconsideration of assumptions about American society and values. American medical personnel reported high levels of cooperation from German prisoners, who had initially been suspicious and hostile, but gradually recognized that their treatment reflected genuine professional ethics rather than deceptive manipulation. The building of trust between medical staff and prisoners created opportunities for valuable intelligence gathering while demonstrating American moral superiority. The documentation of medical conditions among German prisoners provided American intelligence with valuable information about conditions within Germany during the war's final phases, revealing the extent of malnutrition, disease, and medical supply shortages that had weakened German civilian and military populations. This intelligence contributed to understanding of German capabilities and limitations while supporting post-war planning efforts. Letters written by German prisoners to families in Germany, though heavily censored, conveyed amazement at their treatment and helped counter German propaganda about American brutality toward prisoners. These communications reached German civilian populations and contributed to psychological warfare efforts that demonstrated American moral superiority while potentially encouraging German surrender. American medical officers noted significant psychological improvements among German prisoners who received respectful treatment, with reduced anxiety, depression, and hostility that facilitated better camp management while providing opportunities for intelligence gathering and re-education efforts. The therapeutic value of respectful treatment demonstrated practical benefits of maintaining high ethical standards. The success of medical care programs for German prisoners influenced American policies toward prisoner treatment in other theaters and post-war reconstruction planning. The demonstration that respectful treatment could achieve strategic objectives while maintaining moral standards became a model for American approaches to occupation and reconstruction in defeated enemy territories. Allied medical personnel from other nations observed American prisoner treatment protocols and requested information about procedures that achieved such effective results through respectful care. The international recognition of American medical standards provided diplomatic advantages while establishing American leadership in humanitarian approaches to prisoner treatment. German medical personnel, who were also prisoners, observed American medical practices and gained exposure to advanced techniques, equipment, and organizational methods that they would later apply in post-war reconstruction efforts. The transfer of medical knowledge became an unintended consequence of respectful prisoner treatment that contributed to post-war German recovery. The psychological impact on American medical personnel was also significant, as treating former enemies with professional respect reinforced their commitment to medical ethics while providing personal satisfaction that they were demonstrating American values under challenging circumstances. The maintenance of professional standards under difficult conditions strengthened American medical culture and institutional identity. The economic implications of providing high-quality medical care to prisoners demonstrated American resource abundance while creating costs that Germany could never have sustained for captured American personnel. The asymmetry in prisoner treatment reflected broader disparities in national capabilities that had contributed to American victory in the conflict. The precedent established by respectful treatment of German prisoners influenced American approaches to prisoner treatment in subsequent conflicts, establishing standards and procedures that would guide American military medicine for decades. The success of maintaining high ethical standards while achieving strategic objectives became a model for future military medical operations. The historical documentation of prisoner medical care provided evidence of American adherence to civilized standards that would support American international reputation and moral authority in post-war international relations. The records demonstrated American commitment to humanitarian principles, even toward former enemies who had committed atrocities against American forces. The systematic provision of high-quality medical care to German prisoners represented a fundamental shift in American military doctrine that recognized humanitarian treatment as a strategic weapon capable of achieving political and psychological objectives that exceeded the value of conventional propaganda or coercive measures. This approach reflected sophisticated understanding of soft power projection and moral authority as instruments of national policy that would influence international relations for decades. American medical infrastructure supporting prisoner care demonstrated industrial and organizational capabilities that exceeded anything available to German forces during any phase of the conflict. The ability to provide advanced medical care to thousands of prisoners while simultaneously supporting global military operations illustrated resource abundance and administrative efficiency that German intelligence had consistently underestimated throughout the war. The technological sophistication of American military medicine reflected advances in pharmaceutical development, diagnostic equipment, and treatment protocols that exceeded German medical capabilities despite theoretical German advantages in certain specialized areas. American prisoners in German hands never received comparable medical attention, creating asymmetries that demonstrated broader technological and organizational disparities between the two nations. The integration of female medical personnel into military prisoner treatment programs represented social and organizational advances that challenged traditional assumptions about women's roles in military operations, while providing practical advantages through improved patient care and reduced cultural barriers. Dr. Thompson and her colleagues demonstrated capabilities that contradicted German beliefs about American social organization and women's competence. The documentation and study of prisoner health conditions contributed to advances in military medicine, nutrition science, and psychological treatment that would benefit American military and civilian populations for decades. The research opportunities created by treating large numbers of malnourished and stressed individuals provided scientific insights that advanced medical knowledge while serving humanitarian objectives. The standardization of prisoner medical care procedures established protocols and training programs that would influence American military medicine throughout subsequent conflicts. The emphasis on maintaining high ethical standards while achieving strategic objectives became a model for military medical operations that balanced humanitarian concerns with national security requirements. The international implications of American prisoner treatment standards influenced development of international humanitarian law and established American moral authority that would support diplomatic initiatives throughout the post-war period. The demonstration of American values through prisoner treatment provided soft power advantages that multiplied American influence in international affairs. The economic analysis of prisoner medical care revealed cost-effectiveness advantages that supported continued investment in high-quality treatment programs. The strategic benefits achieved through respectful prisoner treatment justified expenses that seemed excessive when measured only against minimum legal requirements, demonstrating the value of exceeding baseline humanitarian standards. The psychological research conducted with German prisoners provided insights into attitude change, cultural adaptation, and re-education processes that would inform American approaches to occupation and reconstruction in defeated territories. The success of respectful treatment in modifying prisoner attitudes demonstrated possibilities for broader social and political transformation through appropriate policies. The logistical systems developed to support prisoner medical care created organizational capabilities that could be applied to civilian humanitarian operations and disaster response. The expertise gained through treating large populations under challenging conditions established American leadership in humanitarian logistics that would prove valuable in subsequent international crises. The training programs developed for medical personnel serving in prisoner facilities established educational standards and ethical guidelines that influenced military medical education for generations. The emphasis on maintaining professional standards regardless of circumstances became a defining characteristic of American military medical culture that distinguished it from other national approaches. The technological innovations developed for prisoner medical care included advances in field medical equipment, pharmaceutical distribution, and medical record-keeping that would benefit civilian healthcare systems throughout the post-war period. The practical requirements of treating prisoners under security constraints drove innovations that had broader applications in emergency medicine and public health. The transformation of German women from enemy combatants expecting brutality into patients receiving respectful medical care revealed fundamental truths about the power of moral authority and professional ethics to transcend political hatred and cultural barriers. Greta Müller and thousands of other German prisoners discovered that American values were not propaganda slogans, but lived principles that guided behavior even toward former enemies who had supported a regime dedicated to American destruction. The irony was historically profound and strategically decisive in ways that extended far beyond individual medical encounters to fundamental questions about national character and the sources of soft power in international relations. Women who had been raised to believe in German superiority found themselves receiving medical care that exceeded anything available in their homeland, demonstrating American capabilities and values through actions rather than words. The human dimension of this transformation revealed the power of respectful treatment to overcome prejudice and hatred while creating opportunities for understanding and reconciliation that would influence post-war reconstruction efforts. Dr. Thompson and her colleagues had demonstrated that maintaining professional ethics under challenging circumstances could achieve strategic objectives while upholding moral principles that defined American national identity. The strategic implications extended far beyond prisoner treatment to fundamental questions about the conduct of warfare and the treatment of defeated populations in ways that would influence American foreign policy for generations. The success of respectful prisoner treatment established precedents for American approaches to occupation and reconstruction that emphasized moral authority over coercive control. The ultimate testament to American success lay in the letters and testimonies of German prisoners who returned home carrying stories of respectful treatment that contradicted everything they had been taught about American character. These personal accounts provided more effective counter-propaganda than any official American information campaign could have achieved through conventional methods. Even in the midst of total war, Americans proved that respect and professionalism could be more powerful weapons than humiliation and cruelty, demonstrating that moral superiority provided strategic advantages that exceeded the temporary satisfaction of revenge. The medical care provided to German prisoners became a symbol of American values and a demonstration of the civilized standards that would guide American international leadership throughout the post-war era. If even prisoners could be surprised by American respect, what does that tell us about the true strength of a nation? Stories like this reveal how American values became strategic weapons that won hearts and minds while establishing moral authority that would influence international relations for decades. In the next episode, we'll explore another hidden aspect of American strength that caught enemy forces completely unprepared. Subscribe now to uncover more untold stories of World War II.